Yes, I know, my jacket is way too big for my frame. But what do you want me to do? It's 40 degrees in my apartment because my AC is broken, so I picked the burliest jacket I could find. You're just gonna have to deal with it. I'm really not this big. Or maybe I am. Maybe the reason why I put on this big jacket is actually because I'm insecure about my body. But that's not what this video is about. Don't worry about that. No, today we are talking about the resurgence, the revival of the album Whole Lotta Red, and why a lot of people are starting to come around to it and saying that it's actually good. Now, if you weren't around when the internet went wild when this album came out, you would know that it was a what's the best way to put this? Everybody thought it was trash. Okay, not everybody. It was like the majority of people. In all honesty, I understand now, looking back, that the album actually wasn't as bad as everybody was saying. It was more of a groupthink thing where everybody was like, oh, you don't like it either, right? So that means it must be trash. So a lot of the people were live listening while being on Twitter at the same time. And it kind of influenced everybody's opinions on the album for the most part. And I'm going to be honest, I fell into that trap. I was listening to the album. I wasn't really enjoying it. And I saw people who were validating my opinion. So I ran with it. And I just thought it was trash. I really did. But, over time, I grew up a little bit, I did my own listens. I did my own research. Imagine listening to an album research. That's crazy. And after listening to the album over the past year, after its initial release, I didn't start liking the album until maybe a couple months ago. And no, it's not because everybody on Twitter was saying how good this album is out of nowhere. It was because I was planning on making this video a long time ago before it became trendy. And everybody beat me to it. So lesson learned, 2022, we're doing better things. Regardless, though, I'm going to take you down a trip of memory lane. And I'm going to tell you how I felt about the album initially. My initial reaction of this album was, this is definitely not Die-Lit. That's the best way I could explain my initial reaction. When I was listening to it, I was saying, where are the melodic songs? Where's the catchiness? This album is extremely dark. What is this? I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Looking back, hindsight is 2020. I could see why a lot of people had their initial reactions, which was, what the hell is this? Because for the first half of the album, there's very few melodic beats in this album at all. We don't start getting those melodic cuts until the very end of the album. And even those are just kind of stacked on top of each other. So they're not really spread out well enough to where you could get that relief in the middle of an album. Usually when artists try to go for this darker style, they do break up those songs when it's a bit of a drastic change from their previous project. But not Carti. Not Carti. He said, I'm gonna give y'all Jump Out the House and Rockstar Made and and I'm gonna give you Stop Breathing all on the first half of the album, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. But I appreciate that. I appreciate Carti not pulling the punches for his audience and really wanting people to experience the album the way he wanted it to. At the end of the day, no, I don't think it was a good marketing strategy to not drop a single and then just drop a first half project where the whole thing is dark and sounds nothing like what you got popular off of. But at the end of the day, I love when artists do something different and they're not afraid to step out of their own lane. Because let's be honest, if we're really having a conversation about music, after Die-Lit came out, artists copied, pasted that style so many times within the past 3 years, and it might have been longer. I don't remember when Die-Lit came out, but right after Die-Lit came out, that's what mainstream music sounded like for a very long time. And even now, there are still influences from Die-Lit. So what would it look like if Playboi Carti just made a Die-Lit 2? That would be kind of crazy, right? He would sound like everybody else who was already emulating his style. And yes, you could say that Playboi Carti does it better than everybody else, but I'm not sure that's true anymore. There are so many artists who have put their own spin on it and have really made great music and, have made the melodic portions of Die-Lit even more melodic now, adding chord progressions and doing different things to really bring in other genres as well. So it's almost beating a dead horse if Playboi Carti just made a second Die-Lit. So once again, that's another thing that, not many people were thinking of when Whole Lotta Red was being marketed, was that what was the sound Playboi Carti was going to be going for? I think the only single that got released was, I don't even remember the name of that song. And it was really bubbly and it was basic Playboi Carti, and a lot of people ended up not liking it. So I think with that reception, Playboi Carti ended up going with the darker styled album, or he was already working on it, and he kind of just put out that song to hold us over until Whole Lotta Red came out. I don't know. Regardless of that, my initial reaction of Whole Lotta Red was not good, not even a little bit. So I went on Twitter and I let other people's opinions validate my opinion of me thinking that this album was bad, and I think that was kind of the main thing. I think a lot of people also don't think of when this album came out, there was a lot of things going on in the world. We were still in the thick of the thing that's still going on right now. I won't say it. I know people are tired of hearing about it, but yeah, that came out around Christmas, and I actually didn't get to spend Christmas with my family. So I was already kind of in a depressed mood. So the last thing I want to hear is Playboi Carti saying, "When I go to sleep, I dream about murder." That's just not a thought I need. So now that I understood that, a few months later, I tried to listen to Whole Lotta Red again. And I gotta say, I started to enjoy the melodic cuts of the album a little bit more, but I still didn't feel like the hype songs did anything for me, and they had literally no replay value. And if they did, it was I think it was Rockstar Made. That was the only one I liked. Stop Breathing, No Sleep, all of those, I still didn't like them at all. The only parts of the album that I even remotely thought sounded good were the melodic parts, and even those parts still didn't hit me as hard as some of the melodic cuts on some of his previous projects. I also didn't fully understand the mixing style or the theme that he was trying to go for, so it still didn't come together. Whole Lotta Red still didn't make a lot of sense to me. Whole Lotta Red didn't make a whole lot of sense. I had to say it. I'm so sorry. But now, the more enlightened me is going to give you my more seasoned opinion on what I think Whole Lotta Red is and if I think it's a good album or not. So my thoughts now is the darker songs, believe it or not, have finally started to click for me. I could finally see the effort Playboi Carti was putting into his vocal delivery and also into the off-kilter mixing style. I actually really like the mixing style for the most part. There are some songs that I think are mixed horribly though. And even though I know it's an aesthetic, it still sounds like shit. I like to think about Tyler the Creator's Cherry Bomb whenever I think of the mixing style that is on Whole Lotta Red, because I remember Tyler the Creator said that the song Run, I think, sounded kind of claustrophobic and extremely distorted to where you could barely hear anything because he was trying to simulate what a mosh pit sounded like. And I kind of feel like Playboi Carti was following a similar type of pattern where he was trying to emulate like, oh, this is what it feels like, what this song should feel like. So the mixing style should emulate what I want the song to feel like. So I truly think that Playboi Carti did that purposefully, obviously, because how is a millionaire, big, huge generational talent just going to drop an album on accident with terrible mixing? Unless Playboi Carti mixed the whole thing himself and recorded it on a Walmart microphone, then that's a different story. But speaking of Cherry Bomb, a lot of people didn't like that mixing style at the time either. Tyler the Creator got a lot of backlash. Well, not backlash, but a lot of criticism because of that mixing style. So at least the internet's consistent about something. People really don't like that mixing style. And I get it. Regardless of the mixing, you could still hear that in Carti's vocal delivery that he's really trying. From songs like Jump Out the House, Stop Breathing, Rockstar Made, those are just a few songs that show Carti being the most animated he has ever been. And at certain times, he's yelling at the top of his lungs to convey the amount of aggression he's trying to get across, it's actually really crazy to hear those type of vocals from Playboi Carti, because on Die Lit he was so chill and laid back for the most part, and then Whole Lotta Red you get Rockstar Made as the first track. It's the comparison between those two albums is crazy, especially when you think about the darkest song on Die Lit was either Love Hurts or R.I.P., and those aren't even nearly close to what is on Whole Lotta Red. The other thing I was thinking about when I was writing this video was I have this feeling that the recording style of this album was significantly different than how Playboi Carti has recorded before. I feel like this album was a little bit more random and sporadic in the recording process, because some of these vocals are really distorted, and It doesn't sound like digital distortion. I might be wrong, but it sounds like he was using a shitty mic for some of these vocals. And it also sounds like he was recording very close to some of these microphones on purpose to simulate a natural distortion. I might be wrong about that. I might be making shit up to make the album sound way better than it actually is, but that's how I feel. You know, I feel like as a music listener, we come up with theories and then the artist is like, what? That's definitely not what happened. I definitely recorded this in $1 million studio. Even though I do like the album a lot more now, I gotta be honest, there was a bit of a change in the tide when it came to what I liked about this album, because the melodic songs, they just are not hitting. They're just not. The more and more I started to listen to this album and the more and more I started to like it, the melodic songs just started to become very dull. But I know why. The songs just are not as catchy at all. The main reason this is true for me is because the repetitive nature that was Die Lit is just not present on this album when it comes to the melodic songs. On some of these songs, he opts out of letting the hook do the heavy lifting and decides to have his verses be longer than usual. Now, at first, I thought I was making that up and I thought I was tripping, but then I went back and listened to Die Lit and I compared it directly to Whole Lotta Red, and yep, that's definitely true. And the main reason why this feels so weird is because we're used to Playboi Carti not rapping a lot. But on this album, he's definitely rapping significantly more than he has in the past. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't even think he rapped that much on the 2017 self-titled Playboi Carti mixtape. It was very jarring when I started to realize what was happening when I was listening to the album, and I was like, you know what's crazy? This song is almost just a verse. A lot of these songs are just verses, and then the hook will play once, and then he'll do a longer verse, and the song will end. It's very strange. I don't know what prompted Playboi Carti to go with this song structure, but I don't think it works very well for me personally, because I don't come to Playboi Carti for substance. I don't come to Playboi Carti for long verses. I come to Playboi Carti for catchiness and the repetition that he's known for. Now, at the end of the day, like I said earlier in the video, I do understand the evolution of Playboi Carti and how that was a necessary part of his growth, because so many people did copy and paste his style. Him and Pierre innovated a whole entire lane and just created a new genre within hip hop. So at the end of the day, people will hijack that, and usually the source material, i.e. Playboi Carti, has to figure out something to keep his career going. And I think Whole Lotta Red was that experimental middle album between what will be his next project, which I think will be a lot more polished, and I think it'll be very interesting to see where he goes from there. I could see Playboi Carti going even darker on the next project, possibly adding more rock elements, but for now, I think Whole Lotta Red definitely does what he wanted it to do, which was to be polarizing and to experiment with his vocal inflections and his vocal delivery, and just experiment with different sounds, because I didn't realize how dark this album was until I listened to some of his other music over the year. And then recently today, before I made this video, I went back and listened to them again just to make sure. It's such a 180. It's such a stark contrast between his previous projects. And I know I keep talking about them, but it's important that I talk about them so that I could kind of help people understand why some people might not have liked Whole Lotta Red, or why you might not have liked Whole Lotta Red, because you just weren't expecting it, and you might not have given it a chance until somebody maybe explained it to you. So maybe give it another chance. Maybe those darker songs are really good, because some of the things that I liked from Die Lit are just on darker beats. The repetition is there on some of these darker cuts. Stop Breathing, Jump Out the House, you know what I'm saying? So I think there is an appreciation that has to go into Whole Lotta Red, because this will innovate and change hip hop in a few years. But we haven't felt the immediate effects of that yet. I'd say the closest to an immediate effect is Baby Keem's The Melodic Blue. He has very aggressive and different inflections that he uses on that album, and the vocal delivery does mimic Playboi Carti quite a bit. So I would say that that's the closest thing we have to Whole Lotta Red influencing someone. But Baby Keem, his previous projects have also sound like that somewhat. It just feels like an elevated version of some of his other mixtapes. So who knows? Maybe in 2 to 3 years, we'll hear Whole Lotta Red reinvented from a different artist, and then we'll start to appreciate it a little bit more. But for now, I guess we could settle for people just understanding it's not a bad album. Even if you don't like it, even if it's not your favorite, even if you don't think it's even remotely close to Die Lit, I don't think it's even close to Die Lit at all, but I do understand why people like it, and I do think it's a decent album for what it is. That's all I have to say. It's getting extremely hot in here now because I'm wearing a hoodie and I'm moving around and I'm just sweating now. So I was cold before and now I'm hot. I hate this shit. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. If you're not new and you're watching the video, thanks for coming back. I appreciate you. That's all I got to say in the matter. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Did you like Whole Lotta Red when it first came out? Or did you change your mind later on? Or do you still think it's trash? Who knows? Let me know. Like I always say, enjoy the music while you can. Thanks for watching. Peace.